Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat sejahtera and good night, everyone. So today we continue our subject, business research methods. So little bit tonight we are cover on the quantitative, especially for hypothesis and relationship model. Also we are cover on the instrument, especially for the qualitative instrument. Okay. So today, I hope so everyone can follow these topics. We still continue on the research methodology chapters. So in chapter 3 chapters, we also cover a lot of things on the methodology. So today we are target for the hypothesis, understanding on the hypothesis developments regarding on the models based on the relationship or influence or effects models. So also we are cover a little bit on the instrument. We start with the qualitative instruments. Okay, so about this one, and commonly when we are study on the quantitative research, when we need to test a theory and test the hypothesis, we need some statements or question, which is from our research objective and research question, and also hypothesis statement. So one of the research we can do for the quantitative, mostly when you are study for testing theory or testing hypothesis, we start with the correlation. Okay. And okay, still your member incoming in our groups. Okay. All right. Correlation is a measure of the degree of relationship between X and Y, or we call that between on the independent variables and dependent variables. Okay, that's why if you want to test hypothesis, we need sometimes we call that dimension, somehow that maybe we can say that about variables. So this is because when you run the software in terms of analysis, in order to make sure that you can analyze certain data, you need to know that how to put the data in the box of independence or dependent variables. So this is really important. When you apply the analysis, you should be know that this data under independent variable or independent variable. In order to make sure you can analyze for the correlation analysis, you need two variables. Okay. In other commands, we call that IV is X. So Y is DV. Okay, in order to know the relationship between IV and DV, so we need two variables, which is one variable for IV, independent variable, another variable is dependent variables. Okay, some study need know about the relationship. Okay, in another what we call that same like correlation, we also can measure by influence. This is a difference between correlation and influence is based on the what we call the R square, regress. So correlation, influence also we call that regress. Okay, so we have another term used, especially if you are study based on the specific software like such as Amos software or SAM-PLS software, we call that effects. We have direct effects and indirect effects. So this is a part, if you want to study to direct effect or indirect effect, you want to study effect, you want to study regress, influence, correlation, we need hypothesis. So in order to write in your literature review, you should have specifics section. We call that hypothesis development. You need have literature review specifically. If you have 10 hypotheses, you need to have at least what we call that certain things. Some literature we call that need 1 page. Some literature need 2 page, at least 2 page to explain one hypothesis. Where your literature review, you cannot be propose hypothesis without any literature support. In order to make sure in order to get the support from literature, at least some lecturers say that maybe 2 paragraphs. Certain lecturer need 2 page. So in this method of lecture, meaning that for your supervisor, okay, you need to ask your supervisor for the direction on the hypothesis development, how many statement or paragraph that required to fulfill your hypothesis development that support from literature review. Okay. Relationship strength level, positive or negative. Basically, we can find that from the result. Okay, from the correlation analysis, we can see that the result is which is positive or negative. Then we call that also that significant or insignificant. Insignificant also we call that not significant. Okay. Another thing is you should be know that regarding on the high, moderate, and the lowest. Okay. From the result, we can say that this result represent a positive or negative, high, moderate, or low, also significant or not significant. Correlation does not always consider the cause and effect relationship. We fact the influence because we just know about the correlation only. So that's, I'm repeat, if you are study correlation, you just know that this relationship, positive relationship or negative relationship. Also, we can answer that this is correlate, what we call that, very strong relationship, moderate relationship, or low relationship. And another one to support your correlation analysis, we call that significance. So correlation between A and B is positive. A stronger relationship between A and B and significant. That's another thing, that difference. If you are studying about the influence and effect, we need some regression. So correlation is not effect and influence. Correlation does not make the prediction. So if you are studying, if you analyze only correlation, so we cannot make the prediction. If you want to prediction, at least you need to test the regress. So for this case, for regressions, so we get the some values that we can predict. So in this matter, how correlation is not enough. If you want to make a predict, you need to extend from correlation. We need to continue for the regress in order to make the predictions. Okay, next is regressions. So regress can predict. That the difference between correlation and regression can make predictions. So they have some, we call that R-square value, can predict for independent variable. Okay, how far that your independent variable can be influenced towards dependent variables. How many percent? So in regression, we can make prediction in percentage, how that our independent variable can predict for dependent variables. Regression, it means the influence or effects between two variables, so that can be predict the value of one variable based on others. Regressions analysis state that the influence, effect, or cause and effects. Regress can make predictions. So this is a difference between correlations and regression. Regarding a step, little bit difference. So we somehow that I'm not say that different, I say the extension. Yes, if you want to study the correlate regression, so if you want to study regression, the first thing first, you need to know the correlation also. So automatically, when you are study for regression, correlation is automatically, you can get the result correlation first, then you further and continue for the influence to check your cause and effects, and you can make prediction how that independent variable can be affects your dependent variables. Okay, another one is we call that structure equation model. I go to the basic for quantitative, so I need you are clear why my study only for correlation analysis. Why we need regression analysis in our study? Because certain research can make predictions. So you want to check that your independent variable can be predict, or how percent this independent variable can be make effects towards dependent variables. Okay, so next we call that structure equation models. Okay, basically the benefits and difference between structure equation models compare with the regression and correlation is because about the modeling. So in one framework, or we call that one modeling, can be answer all your hypotheses. For example, okay, from your drawing, from your frameworks, you can see that the relationship, or we call that effects between A and B, B and C, C and D in one image. That's why we call that modeling. models. Okay, basically in terms of software nowadays, we have a lot of the software. We have the SAS software, we have the Listral software, we have SAM PLS software, we have the AMO software in order to test the SAM technique for analysis. Okay, SAM is a multivariate statisticals also. Also, when we talk about the multivariate, also regression also multivariates. So in it another part of the multivariate statistical techniques, model that involve factor analysis, okay, confirmatory and regressing directly or indirectly. So this is what the beauty of the SAM, because you can get the result from the direct and indirectly effects. Test and explain the effect between various variable construct. Okay, another benefit of the SAM can test a lot of variable in the same time in one models. From one model, you can run automatically together for many variables. You can measure by direct or indirectly. So this is a part of the beneficials of the SAM if you are use the SAM. But the most important thing that you need to know that should be I apply for SAM in order to answer my research questions, my objective and problem statement. That is most important. Somehow students should be know that, or if I want to study SAM PLS, how to I write in my problem statement. This specific objective can be solved using by software like such as SAM analysis software. So you need to know that you have the specific problem. You need to know that what's the best solution, what the best solution for analyze the data. So that's why it's most really important. You should be know that the structure of the chapters. What should be you write in specific in chapter 1, how to write in research background, how to write problem statement. Okay, how that the most important about theory. Why we need to test a theory, why we need some literature to support, why we need have the hypothesis development from literature in order to make sure we can test the hypothesis. Okay, all right. Okay, this somehow that very simple, very basics if you want to study about the relationship, because commonly for PhD student, if you are study on the mono method quantitative, you need to test the hypothesis. So it depends based on your problem. You are actually enough for correlation analysis, or you can extend for influence or regressions analysis, or you need to analyze both for direct and indirect. So you have many variables you want to test in one's models. You can apply for structure question models. So nowadays we have a lot of the software. You can choose which one the best software that in order to make sure you can answer all your hypothesis, research question, and research objective. So this is we call that a few example that we can use for your PhD and master research. So you can analyze. Okay, number 1 is about the parallel relationship models. Then we have this sequential relationship models. Number 3 is multiple relationship model. In specific, we have 2 independent variable and 1 dependent variables. You can also study multiple relationship model with the 3 independent variable and 1 dependent variable. This is we can change the numbers of variable. This some just example. So we can use more than 1 variable. You can use 2. You can use 3 independent variable. Next, multiple relationship model with 1 independent variable and 2 dependent variable. Okay, this is not what we call that some research. Basically, we can see that dependent variable only 1. No. Okay, in the research, you can use more than 1. You can use 2, 3, and 4 variables. It's based on your literature support and your aim. Because you have the problem. In order to solve the specific problem, you need to have a specific objective. And then you need to also have the specific hypothesis. So the numbers of the hypothesis and objective, it depends on your framework. So that's why in quantitative, you need to propose the conceptual framework. Conceptual framework is actually the structured framework to represent can be answer your all objective and your problem statements. Also, we have the balance multiple relationship model, which is we have the 2 independent variable and 2 dependent variable, and the last one is about the structure equation model. Okay, this class, it just cover what we call that some little bit basic, right, about the what we call that relationship, influence, regress, and SAM model. If you are study on the SAM PLS, this is we call that analysis. You want to study the SAM AMOS, you need to join specific class on this matter. Okay, as the postgrad students, we not just only depend in one class. Okay, since you register PhD, you need to register more and more class. In my case, okay, I'm also that we call that researcher. Every week I'm teach about research method. It's not just for the UPSI class on the Friday. Every Sunday and every Sunday, I have the specific class on the research method based on the courses that the university invite me to share that the research methodology. So I hope so you are students in the postgrad study on the PhD on master. Please make sure, and in these 3 years, 2 years and 1 year, you should be make sure that every week you need to upgrade your knowledge, learn about how to write thesis, about the methodology, about the literature review. So actually, you need to have the continuity in order to enhance your knowledge about the research. So many things you need to learn from the research, not just only focus on the whatever you want to learn, but you need to explore. Make sure you make a clear understand whatever you want to know. When you want to explore, you should have clear direction, clear flow, and clear step. And also you can understand all these matters about why this section is most important, how this section are related with the previous one, how that this align with our research objective, why we need to do this, how to do that. So please, in your journey, please don't just follow one only class. Just go this business research method class. So please go to another specific class if you want to learn more. Okay. All right. This is an example visuals. We can see that the relationship, a simple relationship that usually consists on the one independent variable and one dependent variable. If you ask me, can a PhD student test this example of relationship? I can say yes, no problem. Whatever you want to test is basically based on your problem statement. In order to solve your problem statement, you need to propose your objective. For example, your objective to examine relationship between A and B. And for example, your objective to determine relationship between A and B. Okay, to make sure to realize of objective, you need to also have a hypothesis. Okay, you need to also have the hypothesis to test what we call that, to determine the relationship between A and B. Also, you need to test the hypothesis. Okay, all right. In this matter, how if you are framework like this one, you only have one IV and DV. What type of the statistic you can apply? Okay, first, number one is about descriptive. Descriptive for IV and descriptive of DV. You can get the sum, we call that, in statistics, we call that the mode statistical analysis. You can find that the what we call the frequencies, you can get the mean values, you can get the standard deviation value, that we call that this descriptive. Specifically, if you want to study only IV, single one, okay, not relationship. If you want to get the single study IV only, or you want to study DV only, you can get the result from the descriptive. Okay, but in order to study the relationship, so we need have the hypothesis to measure that how that this IV and positive relationship with dependent variable. Some hypothesis statement you can write term of positive and significant. There are positive and significant relationship between IV and DV. So you can use that positive. Somehow, if you want to make it simple, don't put the positive and negative, just straight away that to check that have the significance relationship between IV and DV. So, but it depends on literature review. If you are touched on positive and negative, you touch about the significant or not significant. That's why your statement hypothesis to test the relationship, significant relationship between IV and DV. Okay. So this method basically for the quantitative research, we can use this relationship. For example, your objective number 1. So objective number 1 to examine or to determine between A and B. Okay. Okay, we go to another that we call that sequential relationship. This part we can see that we have IV1, IV2, and IV3. But this one we call that sequential. If you change the drawing, okay, this one we call that sequential. If you can change that the verticals, what we call that position, we can see that how that IV can also direct relationship towards DV. IV2 can also direct relationship towards DV, and IV3 also can direct effects to direct relationship with the DV. But from this what we call that figure, this is the part we call that sequential relation models. So in terms of that IV3 that directly to DV, but IV2 directly to IV3 and IV1 directly to IV2. Just only IV3 have direct relationship towards dependent variable. So it's meaning that IV1 and IV2 is indirectly relationship towards dependent variable. But somehow that from my observation, currently in 2022, mostly researcher not use this part of sequential. Basically, they use the vertical. So directly IV1 to DV, IV2 to DV, IV3 to DV. Okay. So we can test from this figure, we can test the correlations, determine relationship between IV1 to IV2, IV2 to IV3, and IV3 to DV. Also, if you want to extend, you can study also regression, because you have more than one independent variable. So if you have the multiple independent variable, we can continue. After we test the correlation, we can add for another regressions analysis. Why? That we have learned in the first slide and second slide, we have different between relationship and regress. So regress can make prediction. You can check that how that this independent variable can be effects. For example, in term percentage, how many percentage effects for this multiple IV towards dependent variables. So in this model or this figure can be tested on the descriptive also. I'm not mentioned here. You can also analyze descriptive. You can also analyze the correlations. Okay, you can also extend for the regression analysis. Okay. Okay, so this is another example. For example, you have 2 IB and 1 DV. Basically, that's the difference. I show you that this one we call that sequential. So we can see have direct and indirect between IV towards dependent variable. But this one only 2 IV and 1 DV. You can see that the IV1 can be effects or influence the dependent variables directly, and also IV2 also directly relationship towards DV. And also you can also test the correlate between IV1 and IV2. We can analyze the correlate between IV1 and IV2, and also IV1 can study the relationship or influence directly between IV1 to DV. IV2 also can measure by directly through relationship or influence between IV2 to dependent variables. So we call that direct relationship or direct influence or direct effects between IV1 to DV, IV2 to DV, and at the same time, so IV1 and IV2 can test the correlates. So from this figure and this model, we can conclude that we can measure by correlation, determine relationship between IV1 to DV and IV2 DV. Also, you can test by make it multiple. So IV1 together with IV2 make it multiple to test toward DV. So we can use the multiple regression also because more than one independent variable. Okay. So we extend. So this another example. This one 3 independent variable. And from previously we start with the 2 IV with 1 DV. So in this in this model and this figure represent on if you have 3 independent variables and 1 dependent variable. So from here you can see that why we have 4 hypotheses, because directly we can see that IV1 to DV, this is a hypothesis number 1. Okay, IV2 direct to DV, our H2, hypothesis number 2. Okay, IV3 direct to DV, this is a hypothesis number 3. But the combination between IV1, IV2, and IV3, we call that multiple. And multiples meaning that combination combines together IV1 in IV2 and IV3 towards DV. This represent on hypothesis number 4. Hypothesis number 4 is combination IV1, IV2, IV3, test relationship towards dependent variable. So in this figure and model can conclude that we can test for the correlations, determine relationship between IV1 to DV, IV2 and IV2 to DV, IV3 to DV, and also combine together IV1, IV2, IV3, make it multiple. So we can test multi-variable regression towards dependent variable. Okay. Okay, we can also not necessary if you want to study on the correlate or influence or effect, we need more than one IV. But it depends in your problem statement. Okay, maybe just little or few study use this example figure. You have only one IV, but you have more than one dependent variable. But in terms of logic, in terms of rational, no problem at all. If you are study more than one dependent variable, is also acceptable. This is an example, very basic example, one IV and you have 2 dependent variable. The same thing, you also can test for the correlation analysis. For example, IV1 to DV1, IV1 to DV plus, you can also test the correlate between among dependent variable, which is for DV1 and DV2, also you can test the correlate value. Okay, because your DV have more than one, we can also study the regression analysis, can also use this multiple relationship by sorting the available variable. You can also use this regression also because you have the IV and DV. Of course, you can study correlate and regression also. Okay, this is a balance. We can say that balance. You have 2 IV and 2 DV, 2 independent variable, and you have 2 dependent variables. So in this part, you can study on the correlation. You can study multiple correlation. You can study on the multiple regression also. Correlation between IV1 to DV, IV1 to DV2, IV2 to DV1, and IV2 to DV2. So you can study the multiple correlation, combination IV1 and IV2, you can test to DV1. Also, you can combination IV1 and IV2, you can test the DV. So you can study on the multiple regression, IV1 and IV2 with DV and IV1 and IV2 with DV2. So you can study the correlation and study a regression. Look like same? Yes, because multiple correlation use more than one variable. If you want to test on the independent variable, you need to combine that IV1, IV2 to study the correlation. Please remember, there are different between correlation and regress. You can do another things after study the correlation. You use the same thing, but we call that multiple regression because we need to regress, not just only correlate, but we also need to regress. Okay, this one for the structured question model. Okay, basically in structured question model, we have another third variable. We call that moderator, mediator variable. Okay, you should know the basic. Why we need some, we call that structured question model. This is not just only popular. This is not just only trend. So mostly researcher need to use the mediating and moderating. You should know the basic first. Okay, for example, if you want to study one topic, so this topic is not new topic, a lot already. in the quantitative research study on the IV and DV, a lot of things. So when you want to study that the topic, some supervisor call that, oh, this topic is already saturated. Already saturated. Okay, if you want to extend this research, you want to study more, because a lot of study have done before to test between IV and DV. So in this matter, if you want to study against, you want to enhance, or you want to upgrade this modeling, you should be aligned with your problem statement. So for example, problem statement, you get some research gap from the suggestion from the previous study, highlight that, okay, in this model, you need to extend by doing moderating and mediating tests to make sure that this IV need to support from the others variables. So it's meaning that from the result, we can see that relationship between IV and DV, okay, the result is okay. IV also direct to DV is okay, but in order to make sure more excellent result or more better result, we need to what we call that, follow the suggestion from previous study to test another variable, the third variable, we call that mediating variable or moderating variable, to make sure that IV can effect DV are more better, which is, if you can convert in percentage, previously from previous research show that effect between IV1 and DV is only 70%. Okay, but when you test the IV towards DV by mediate some variable, the effect increase 90%. So that's why mediating variable maybe can show that the better effect, or somehow maybe less effects. So that's why we need to test this mediating variable become more better effect or less effects. So from literature, you should be read and understand. Some students just only pick up somewhere this mediating variable, and you make this variable as your mediating variable. It's not based on you from your reading and understanding. Then when you try to analyze, then suddenly you get the result. So IV will be effect DV is good figure, for example 70%, but from this mediating effects from the IV to DV show that the effect are less than 70%. Something wrong here, but it's depend on your study. Somehow the student may from their study need the positive result. Somehow the study they need to make sure, because everything are changed already. So your variable have the specific problem and objective. So it's depend on your research. Okay, but commonly in quantitative we looking for positive, and so from mediating variable will be assist us in order to get a better result. So that's the reason. Mostly research, you add the mediating or moderator because you want to more better and more effects. For example, this part you want to get the regress influence more highest percentage effect towards DV. Okay, so what's next? We call that saturated. From the directly already saturated, just effect on 17%. How to increase more than 70%? So in this method, we can apply for moderating and mediating to be support, and also from this mediating variable can be increase the effects towards dependent variable once IV and mediating variable together from in the one model to test and effects our dependent variables. So this image, this figure, and this model used in structural quotient models. In statistical analysis, basically we involve the variable not just only to test the direct, and also we involve on indirectly. So we have independent variable, we have mediating variable, moderating variable, and also dependent variables. Okay, this is another simple visuals that you can see that the arrow. So from the mediator, you can see that the effect. So IV can be direct effect to DV. IV also can make direct effect to mediator. Mediator also get DV. So somehow your research is not mediator, is moderator. So moderator cannot be effects. IV also cannot be effect the moderator. Moderator also cannot be effect the dependent variable. But in this research, we just to include moderator in order to together to test between IV and DV. But the characteristic of moderator is not effect to DV, and also IV cannot be effect directly to moderator, because the role of moderator just be include the relationship testing between IV and DV. That's this what we call that, this basic figure show you that you need to know the difference. So some lecturer or panel will ask you what the difference between mediator and moderator. Why we need the moderator than mediator. So from the previous one, if you are not study mediator and moderator, what the effect directly between IV and DV. So mostly they need to check first what's the result from the previous study if you study on the direct first. So what the reason, what the justification, why you need to study mediator or moderator, why IV and DV relationship as a directly is not enough, why you need to extend, why you need the third variable. Mostly your supervisor and your assessor will ask about this one, because we not just only because follow the trends. So PhD student should be test, have mediator and moderator, but suddenly you are not clear the behind and the reason and justify why we need mediator, why mediator so important in your framework, why you need to test in this mediator or moderator. Okay, so we continue for another topics in today. We also cover on the example qualitative research instruments. So qualitative research instrument, we can start with the content of question parallel to research questions. That's the most important thing. Like, it's not just only for the qualitative instrument. In the quantitative instrument also, whatever we use instrument as a tools, we actually try to answer your research hypothesis, research question, and research objective. In this example, because we are studying instrument for qualitative, represent on research question, is not from the hypothesis. If you are studying quantitative, this is the reason is just because you want to answer your research objective and research hypothesis also. The question is not just only the content question. What should be content you want to ask? So how many question, numbers of question, type of the interview, and so what type is, we call that single interview, or you have the case interview, you have the group interview, based on the structured or semi-structured interview or unstructured interview. Question ability to get rich, and that's the reason we are actually last week we are study a difference between qualitative and quantitative. The keyword for the qualitative, get the rich and sufficient response to answers to the question. Another word we call that saturated. So once you interview in one person, you get very beauty and rich data. Then you go to the second interview, also you add another understanding and meaningful on this matter. So you get another rich data. You go to the third interview, you get another rich data. So you still can collect the data until the next interview show that the answer is mostly already repeatedly and same. Say you can continue another one, and again they show the same thing, they're still repeating and also same data previous one. You can stop your interview because we can call that already saturated. Okay, this is some example. This is how that you structured in order to propose the question from the interview. So you should be know that the certain important keyword here. Number one is area of investigation. So you should be know that from the interview, what is the area of the investigation, aim of the cognitive interviews, and example prompts. Okay, let's say we go to number one. Area of investigation is about comprehensions. So this is the area you want to investigate. So in the cognitive, you want to explore. Okay, this one, number one, to explore the comprehension key term with the questions. To explore comprehension in question as a whole, what's example to see whether comprehension is influenced by question length and sentence structure. Okay, we can see the prompt question. Okay, what did you understand by term X when answer this question? Okay, what does the term X means to you? So this you want to explore. Okay, so another one, this is some question to looking at the comprehension investigation in your own words. What do you think this question try to ask? Okay, this you can ask or whatever, but these are the directions. So that's why it's really important before you have the prompt question, you should be know that. So this prompt question for which research question, which research objective, what actually the keywords or ancient words in this what we call that the questions for this area for the comprehension. Okay, number 2 is retrieve. Retrieve meaning that cognitive you can get from the investigation area on retrievals to establish whether respondent can recall the required information. Second one, to establish whether respondent restrict their recall to the reference period specific in the question. For example, in the last 7 days, how many units of alcohol have you drunk? For example lah kan. So how easy or difficult was to remember X? What time period were you thinking about when answering? From when until when? When did you last do X? So you start with the retrieve. Number 3 is that you continue for your question for the judgments. To explore respondent strategy when answering. For example, do respondent use an accurate calculation strategy or just take a guess? To explore whether the question is considered sensitive and embrace and the impact this may have on the data collect. For example, do respond edit their answer or refuse provide an answer? Okay, how do you work out? What do you work out your answer to this question? How accurate will you say your answer is? How do you feel about being asked this question? How comfortable will I feel to answer this question? Okay, the last one is the response. To explore whether respondents are able to map their mind answer, to check whether the any answer category are missing from the list provided. So how is it difficult to select answer from the option provided? Why do you tick that particular box? Are there any category missing from the option provided? Okay, why we need do this prop question? Why you should be know that every single question from the prop is aligned with the cognitive? Why we need to align also this all the question by category of the investigation, area of investigation. So somehow that when you have the protocol for interview, you need to know that you want to make sure that, so you just very particular to make it a plan and preparation in order to make sure that the question can be answer your specific research question and research objective. Somehow that once you go to the interview, then you go to the transcript, when you want to explain from the specifics objective or research question, your data is not rich, it's not enough. Okay, maybe you ask we can say that from this question is not really focused. So actually from this question and the answer cannot be answer your specific objective. So that's why really important, every single question in your research should be aligned with your specific objective also. Okay, this is another interview item. You can see that from 1 to 15 in the last words after question mark, they have actually number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, 6, 7, 8. You can see that questions from interview question from number 1 to number 8 is purposely for your research question number 1. Meaning that in order to answer research question 1, you need to have 8 questions. What experience do you have relate to NGSS before the project begin? What do you think that are most so? So number 1 to the number 8 is actually for your specific research question number 1. Okay, next. Do you think yourself a novice, accomplished novice, or expert? Okay, just only one question for research question number 2. Okay, some students ask me, can we ask only one question for specific one research question? This is an example. Let's say my research question number 2 only have one interview question. That's enough? Okay, that's why we call that subjective. It depends on your objective, depends on your problem statement, and your question can be answered in order to make sure that you can solve your objective and your problem statement. If the question is, because the objective is directly, so we can also ask directly to the participant, and the answer the participant can be answer your specific research question or research objective. So if you ask me, can be only one, I say yes, because qualitative is subjective. What's the project? PD. So this is a research question number 3. You have 10 to 15. This question specifically for your research question number 3. So in order to make the protocol from your instrument qualitative, please assist for your expert. At least expert know that this question specifically in what research question. Okay, please make sure. Please also bring what you call that two-page executive summary. From this 2 executive summary, also show that your research question, your research objective hypothesis, so easy to us. Once we need to check your instrument, we also need your at least introduction and also your specific research, your specific research objective, research question. Maybe if you want to study quantitative, you need to also specify your hypothesis. Okay, so this interview item is actually have 15 questions, but align on the specific research question and research objective. Okay, sorry. I need to setting my my computer view, because they already changed for the night mode. So I need to off, so make sure that I can see my slide very clear. Okay, so we continue for the next one. Okay, after we are follow the 2 example. So this is a type of the interview question. This is we call that type for the interview question. So we have type of the introductory questions, transitions questions, we have key question and closing question. We can see that we have intro and closing question. Okay, and the most important thing, we also have the transition question and key questions. So how that these 4 are different. Introductionary questions is based on this one. This is an explanation of type of the question. For introduction side, introduction question that are relatively natural, eliciting general and no intrusive information, and they are not threatening. This is an example. Okay, based on the information that you provide in the questionnaire, you went to high school at, do you grow up in? If yes, go to question number 2. If no, where do you grow up? Okay, this example for we call that neutral question. What we call that the introduction section. So we go to the transition question that the link with the introduction question to key question to be asked. So this is a part of the specific question in order to answer your research question and research objective. Okay, in your questionnaire, and this is just example, you not mention questionnaire also, no problem. Okay, you said that yours mother, father or guardian has the education. Is that correct? If yes, does that mean that you are the first in your family to enroll in college? You say no. Who else your family has gone to college? So you start a transition. Then go to the key questions that are the most related. So this one, transition related, but this one, the key question meaning that the specific question in order to answer your research question and research objective. What make you identify with that community? So meaning if you ask about the identify with that community, maybe your research question is actually what is the community. That's why you ask the specific question, because these questions are specifically to answer your specific research question or research objective. So the last one, a closing question, a question that are easy to answer, the same like the introduction section, very neutrals, very easy to answer. Before we conclude this interview, is there something about your experience in this college that you think influence how they engage in your class that we have not yet had the chance to discuss? So apa lagi perkara-perkara yang you nak highlight, you nak tambah that is not from our question and not from our discussion, but you need to add at least we know that how important this specific also this interview's topic in your life, for example. Okay, so you have the introduction section, you have the transition, you have the key question, and also the closing question. In order to produce somehow students should, you want to have 10 question or 50 question, 20 question. In order you have 10, 15 or 20 question, you can divide by category: introduction, transition, key question, and closing question. But the most important here is actually from the key question, because key question is directly to be answer your research question objective. But for introduction, closing, and the transition also related and important should be that these interviews, numbers of the question interview are actually balanced. Okay. So this another example. This divide by 3 area: focus of research, sub-focus research, and question. For example, focus your research is about belief about the nature mathematics. Okay, in this focus, divide by sub-focus. For belief about the nature mathematics, we have definitions. You have relationship between mathematics and daily life, the development of mathematics science. Or if you have sub-focus, easy to us to make the questions. For example, number 1, definition of mathematics. So we can ask, based on your belief, what is mathematics? Why you answer? Sorry, why you need to ask about the what is mathematics? Because about the focus area of belief about the nature of mathematics, we need at least one question on definition of mathematics. So because you have done your sub-focus area, so it's good. This one is good approach. Some students just only from the focus area, suddenly you direct have the specific question. It's good also. It's not just only focus, but you start with the sub-focus. For here, we have the specific 3 sub-focus, meaning that you have the 3 questions. Okay, belief about the teaching about mathematics, about teaching approach, rules, about problem solving, motivation, which is we have 4 a sub-focus. So we start number 1, elaborate your belief on effective approach to implement your teaching mathematics. What is the ideal role of the teacher in mathematics introduction? So we can continue for the problem solving, motivation also. So the last one about the belief about the learning mathematics, about the role of student. How should student learn maths? What should student master to learn math? So this is about learning mathematics. Okay, so this is also important when you prepare on your protocol and your interview set. So we need have the checklist also. On what basis what the interview selected? Do I have time to locate the interview? You should be discussed with your participant about place, times, day. So you need to have some very good communication to confirm that by next Monday we have the meeting to conduct the interview. Okay, jadi you need to have very good communication and set about the specific time, date, and others. Okay. Next about the has the interview be sent information on a topic and focus the interview. If you study on the structured question, you can send earlier so the participant can be ready and can be answer your question in a good knowledge. Sometimes they are actually take time in order to understand your question, but if you can send early, so maybe also participant can be asked your question to get more understanding. Okay, but that's why it's really important your questionnaire or the interview question, you should be sent to expert first in order to check your item question and your protocol sections. Okay. Okay, from the interview have the closed-ended question and open-ended question. So that's why we have 4 actually open, or we call that introduction section. So we have the transaction question, we have the key question, and the closing question. In this checklist to check that you have prepared for the open and the closing questions. Do I have some samples follow-up question identified for each interview question? So you should have follow up from your participant to make sure that they are clear all your question. If you are structured question, you have select the right person, can be answer your specific question. What's the information might I get from the interview? What information would I be nice to get, but not necessarily from the interview? So you have good in communication with your participant, and then you should be know that because in research you need to have enough information and enough document in order to engage with the participant. Make sure that all these checklists have checked one by one to make sure that from your interview day, from your result for your interview can be aligned and matched on your specific research question and research objective. Okay, this part of the we can send to the expert to check your somehow we call that interview protocol. For example, interview protocol such a beginning question of factual in nature, yes or no. So you can also add some feedback for improvement. Key question are majority of the question and the place between beginning and ending question. Question at the end interview protocol are relative and provide participation opportunity to share the closing comment. So basically for expert, there can be follow this example aspect in order to check that your question, sorry, your interview items are actually are suitable enough or not, or can be understand to all participants in order to get the in order to give response and answer for your specific question. So you can check for the aspect interview protocol, for the interview protocol structure, writing interview question and statements, length interview protocol, comprehension. Basically we can check from this questionnaire, from the interview question is based on the 4 aspect: interview protocol structure, writing of interview question statement, length of the interview protocol, the last one comprehension. Okay, so another thing also you should be know about that you need to prepare for the qualitative instrument that you should be have also for the interview guide. The interview guide is nothing more than a list, a question you to intend to ask in the interview. So that's why we use guide, but depends on your type of the interviews, structured or semi-structured or unstructured. The interview guide may contain a dozen. But you should be not we not measure it in terms of number of question, but how that this question specifically can be answer your specific research question and research objective. Generally, it's good idea to ask for relatively naturals and descriptive information to get the beginning and interview. So neutral, and for your beginning we call that introduction section. Somehow we call that opening question. So this some example of interview guide. And this one from Valenti 2005. I understand that you are concerned about your health. Tell me about your health. This is some example. This is a good for us lah when we need to explore how to propose a specific question for our interview. So for this example, I just read to number 1 to number 12 that we can see that the what we call that the flow from the 1 to 2 to 2 until the end. I understand that you are concerned about your health. Tell me about your health. Okay. Number 2, what motivates you to learn about your health? Tell me in detail what's the kind of thing you have done to learn more about your health. Okay. What did you do first? Where do you find information about your health? Number 5, tell me about a time when something you learned had positive impact on your health care. What kind of thing you have changed in your life because of your learnings? From do you talk about your health? Tell me about your current interaction with your healthcare provider. Tell me about what do you keep track of your health? What other thing do you do to manage your health? What kind of challenge barrier do you experience when managing your healthcare? What else would you like to share about your healthy relating learning? Okay, you can see that how they are structured the interview guide. Okay, number 1, I understand you are concerned about your health. Tell me about your health. So this is the opening question. So this number 1 is opening question. So what else would you like to share about your healthcare related learning? So this is a closing question. You need to ask the very simple questions. Okay, number 1, number 12. 12 is closing. Number 1 is opening. So you should be in yourself. You should be know that. Okay, question number 2 belong to research question number 1. So you need to identify, let's say you have the 3 research question where a question purposely asked because in order to answer your research question number 1, research question number 2, and research question number 3. Okay, this some of the consent form. You also need to, because our university not prepare this consent form, also you need to prepare from your set of the interview. Okay, I confirm that I had read to meet the left lead about the research project. I understand about the content. So this is a participant I need to take. I understand that my participation is voluntary and that I am free to withdraw at any time without giving a reason. I understand that the interview will be recorded and write on words of the words later. The recording will be secure, stored in accordance with the Data Protection Act. Okay, I understand that anything I saw will be threatened confidential and only used for research purpose in accordance with the Data and Protection Acts. I agree to take part in this research. Okay, jadi kita letaklah for this something like the consent form lah to make sure that no issue lah. We protect together. We go this research only purpose for the research. Okay, we follow all the ethics in this matter. We call that from Data Protection Act. We need to protect our participant information also. That's why this research consent form is really important. Okay, that's it today. So we have learned to big thing here. Number 1, study about how the connected between hypothesis towards relationship, hypothesis between influence, relationship between effects. So we learned that the basic of the mostly on the quantitative study to get the empirical result, to test the correlation, regression, and structure equation models. So we already see that the model and figure. From this model and figure, what type of the analysis can be measured and test. Last one, I show you that the instrument in part of the qualitative. So how about the preparations on your interview question? How to make sure that this all item question interview can be answer your research question and research objective. They have also important area you need to be know from opening, closing, and then for your transition and key questions. So this slide actually little bit and can assist you in order to make sure that to prepare on your chapter 3, not just only to write research design, research philosophy, research approach, research choice, research strategy, research technique, but also that you should be know that the prepare on the instrument development. In this case, in tonight, I'm sharing with you that how that we can prepare a set of the interview section that follow all the protocol, that the common practice. If you want to be answer your objective, we need have the specific question in order to ask on the specific participant. Okay. So I'm open for any questions, and before we stop today for covered another topics for research methodology on the relationships towards hypothesis and then for the qualitative instrument. So please, if you have question, please ask.
Yes, sir. Hello.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, please.
Yeah, my questions are not regarding the lesson that we have learned today. My questions are about my first question is about that, do we have any final exam in this subject?
No.
Yeah,
we don't have the exam for the research matter. You need to think only, just join for our class for attendance, and number 2, you need to complete our assignment. Only 2.
And there were some problems for me in the chapter outline 2. For chapter outline 1, it was okay. Like I was understanding all the parts as I've learned from the videos. For the chapter number 3 outline, it was going well with me. For the chapter outline 2, there were like some confusions as I've written the literature review, so it might not fulfill all the parts that are in chapter outline 2. So
you are not joined for our discussion on chapter 2. Chapter 2 actually you are learn for the self. Actually, I'm share with you the video and the slide. Okay, it's okay.
Okay.
I keep your question. Maybe I can little bit discuss with you after this about literature review outline.
Okay.
So
Okay.
okay, all right.
Yeah, so sir, if any part is missing from that specific
Yeah, okay.
outline,
Never mind, never mind. I will after this I will be share with you that our literature review outline so we can
okay,
discuss on that. Okay.
okay, okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, in your proposal, need to write all question or just that you will to use what type of the interview? Okay, Hana, the most important thing why we need instrument because you want to answer your research question and research objective. You need to know that what the best instrument in order to answer your objective and research question is belong your problem statement. So in this matter, in order to solve your objective, you need to decide what type methodology you want to apply. So we have mono method qualitative, you have mono method of quantitative, you have mixed method and multiple method. So one of the instrument in we are covered today is an interview. So in qualitative, it's not just only interview, we have the document analysis, we have the observation from the checklist. But today I show you the one example from the interview. So if you want to in order to propose the interview set question, it actually depends on your objective. Because in research, in order to answer your specific objective, please make sure the question from the interview can be answered your objective. Then your answer is not just about number, it's about how that this answer from the participant can be enlightenment, enrichment your data until saturated. So if you are actually ask many peoples, or we call that many participation, but actually the question is not enough in order to answer your specific objective, you have problem later on. So that's why it's really important when you have done the question, you need to send to expert. So expert can be checked one by one to make sure that this all items interview question can be answer your specific research question. So if you ask me in terms of numbers, yes, we have discussed last week. So qualitative about quality is not quantity, but the most important thing is about our plan and preparation. We call that protocol. So to make sure that we don't have the problem when we are make the interview, so all the answer from the participant specifically can answer our research question and research objective. Okay, so for assignment, okay, for assignments that I mentioned earlier, okay, so this is about progress. Okay, so you are actually basically mostly from here as semester 1 and semester 2. So for this part, what progress you have done in chapter 2, you just submit. Chapter 1, I think that I think that chapter 1 everyone can write completely. But in chapter 2 and chapter 3, whatever you have done and based on your research, it's not new research, it's actually based on your master topic with the discuss with your supervisor, the PhD from your supervisor, you have prepared at least. I just mentioned, and again, I repeat, I just need a progress. But it's not the plain paper. Something like, oh, I don't have prepare for the chapter 3. So I mentioned again, I need progress. Maybe you have done, maybe you just some section you write a few, some section you just prepare the outline only because your progress is not right, but you are prepared with your supervisor regarding the outline chapter 3. That's just submit a progress, I can be acceptable and can pass in the subject. Okay, so in terms of instrument, it depends. If you are ready the instrument for the interview of the question, you can send. If you are not yet, okay, it's okay, and it's okay, no problem. You cannot, not necessary everyone need to propose the interview question or something like that. Okay. All right. Okay, please.
Yeah, sir, I've got another question regarding the thing that we have just mentioned in today's class. It was like we can add the mediator variable
Yep.
we. So if for now I go with the same pace, like that I've been working on 2 variables only. For now, for this assignment, it would be okay if I later on just add the mediator variable for our final thesis.
No problem. But this is your research. I'm just want to know that everyone here, you have learned something from this subject.
Yes,
and
sir.
can help you all in order to that show your progress with your supervisor. That's so you have increased something. So from this class, you can write something and you can discuss with your supervisor. Maybe you need to discuss by weekly or monthly with supervisor. Then supervisor can see that, oh, you show your very good momentum and
Yes.
progress because from this subject. So
Okay.
I did because the most important thing is this subject, you get something, and then the most important thing, you have very good communication and relationship with your supervisor in order follow the step and process. After this, I hope so that you prepare for proposal defense. You need to write to complete the chapter 1 and chapter 2 and chapter 3. Please discuss with your supervisor and attending for your proposal defense. After proposal defense, you can collect the data. Okay, that's part you can finalize your instrument. Then go to the collect data. So this part, after this subject, please make sure that you are structured. Please make sure you have good communication and relationship with your supervisor in order to show your good progress and performance. So here I just discuss a few things about what is about the business research method. Okay. Okay. So whatever you want to explore is up to you because this is your research. You have specific title, you have the specific theme and variable. So if you have mediator, you don't have mediator, also no problem. So anyone can study. So not just only quantity, you want to study quali, case study, phenomenology, actual research. What else? Ethnographies and narrative inquiries. You want to study descriptive. You want to study the what we call that's the formula from the experimentals, whatever. It's not just only that I'm ready discuss in the class, but somehow that maybe too many. I cannot be cover everything. So maybe in here you are study more specifically certain research strategy. Also no problem because this is your research. Okay, so please do the same whatever you have discussed with your supervisor. Don't do another research. Oh, your research, your thesis with the supervisor, and then you send to me the research is different thing. No, it's actually aligned, the same thing actually. Okay. If you have done, let's say here, because I get some message from our clique, they have done chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3. Already sent with their supervisor. Can we send the same thing with our subject? Yes, please submit the same thing. Okay. But I know that here a lot of students from the semester 1, so I don't predict more. At least you have something to show me. This chapter 1, this chapter 2, this chapter 3. Number of page, I'm not measure. 2 page, 3 page, 4 page, 5 page, it doesn't matter. The most important thing, you're honest, this is my progress. Okay. Okay, another questions. Okay, sometime during the interview, you discover you need to add more question or change. Yeah, that's why. Because that's why we call that qualitative. They are subjective and flexibles. That's why from the interview, we have set of the structured question, semi-structured and unstructured. So maybe you can add another question because from the interview, you notice that another question you need to add. Okay, but Hannah, on the qualitative, we need to have very good plan. So we not refer on the change. We hope that our set interview, no change or no add question. We work on that first, but suddenly happens. Okay, we cannot control. Okay, you have already followed the step and you prepare, you discuss with supervisor, send to expert the check. So you have clear and you make improvement a set of the interview. Suddenly when you go to the field work, you ask the specific question to participant, you looking that you need to add or change a question that you need to justify. From my experience, when the student do like this, I ask about the validity. You already sent for the pilot, they say no. That's the problem. That's why very particular, you need to go to the process. Not necessary you have prepared the question, then suddenly go to the interview. So the panel and the assessor will ask you, can you explain about the validity process from your instrument development? How that you prepare the question, you follow what's the scholar. So after you are done the final draft on your interview, what the next section you apply, you have that you have already sent to the validity process, to expert check, member check, okay, to also represent that this set also not just only have validate, it's good but reliable also. So after you send to expert, then you need to do a pilot study also. So this part you have done, but certain happen because we cannot control, so little bit change that we can be accept because you already show that your progress, your attention and efforts in order to make sure that this instrument already have very good validity and reliability. So do we need to attach the questionnaire, our research proposal? No, not necessary. If you have, yes, please send together. If not ready, it's okay, no problem. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you. I am trying to develop one, like just a sample one. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I need to stop share. I need to share a slide from literature review. Okay. Okay, this one. Okay, so when we see this, what we call that, the inverse pyramid, in order to write your literature review, in here we have 5 areas. Okay, the first area is the introduction and overview. Okay, that's why we have number 1 is introduction overview. The second one is a conclusion. This is a commonly in all chapter. We should be start introduction and then we have the conclusion and on your chapter. Okay, another part is the overview. So overview is actually extended from your research background. So maybe your research background is not maybe, and should be in your research background is very simple and short. In order to write more, you can continue for the chapter 2, because chapter 2 also you can discuss in your research background more and more, because chapter 1 is really short and just write whatever you need to highlight and in the simple and easy sentence that we call the chapter 1. So that's why chapter 1 introduction should be short and simple. So, and second one, when you write in your literature review, we call that the theoretical, or we call that knowledge. So in order to explain and discuss about the knowledge, you can start with the theory. Somehow we call that the main concept. Theory is the theory is meaning that main concept, which is you can use theory, you can use principle, you can use models, because this theory, principle, fundamental, model is the main concept. So it depends. Some research have theory, some research have the model, some research have the principle. You can choose which one the most suitable and most significant in your research, because in certain topic, in certain fields, so they don't have the theory, but they have the concept. Please use theory or concept in order to represent on the theoretical and knowledge section. Next, after you have done discuss about theory, you can conclude in that section by propose the theoretical framework. Okay. Number 3 is about the research concept support research variability. So mostly research, we need to make sure that from your theory and concept, we can identify that your variables and your dimension, your factors, your themes. So and then you need to align with your literature from the previous literature also. So in this part, because you have idea from chapter 1, you have the idea. So this make a realize the idea when you have done a lot of the thesis and article journals in from the academician side and from the industrial for the government. So you have already clear now. So in this topic is actually you are start with the theory, but you also read a lot of things to make a realistic, because some theory is very old theory. To be realistic in 2022, you read a lot of literature, and again for the academic, industry and government also. Then finally you can propose your conceptual framework. Your conceptual framework should be different with others, at least 1% difference, not same the previous one. Yeah, actually same if you are, let's say I'm read one thesis or one article journal, I can see their research framework. Previous research framework, if you want to use in your research, we call that theoretical framework, because you just take from the previous research, and because their framework are much related with our study, so you just copy from the previous framework as your theoretical framework. Okay, this is not yours. This is the previous framework. Okay, and then you want to study because you need to extend. You want to explore more. You want to add more. That's why you need to add the conceptual framework. That's why I mentioned conceptual framework is not same from the previously. Okay, the last one you need to study. This one detail. The blue one is really important. You need to discuss on your research question and research objective. For example, specifically 2.6 is your literature review for research question number 1. 2.7, this literature review specifically for your research objective or research question number 2. The last one is the conclusion. So this is a very basic. Once you want to write the literature review, you should know that what's the importance section you need to write in your literature review. Okay, sorry, please.
Sorry for the interruption, sir. Sir, for the blue one, research discussion, research question, objective and methodology, shall we discuss, for example, we have already got the research question, objectives, and hypothesis. So shall we explain it in our own words, or shall we cite some paper to support it?
This should be cite. Literature review should have the facts. It's not based on our experience. It's actually literature review. You need to bring a facts. So that's why in the blue one, we call that empirical research. Empirical research, you should be discussed. For example, according to Fazli, discuss about the relationship between A and B. They are study using the theory X. Okay, in their research, use the 3 variables. Variable A, variable B, and variable C. They are using the research design from the Creswells. Okay, they are the population sample they using the we call that the randomly sampling. By use 345 data in their research, that we call that empirical writing research. That's the blue ones.
So, sir, we need to see the discussions and the research questions of those papers and those theses. Are we just need the support here for our research questions? Are
when you refer the thesis, I think they mostly do the same things. Okay, never mind. I tried to get clear what you actually highlights. So after this, I will show with about the outline. From the outline, we can discuss further. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay, this is the outline. Okay. Okay. We go through one by one. You can see that 2.1. Okay, 2.1 is an introduction. Very basic. All the chapter you have 1.1 introduction, 2.1 introduction, 3.1 is introduction. This become format. All the chapter we need to start with the introduction. This we call that the introduction chapters. Okay, we start the 2.2. It's an overview because many things you want to discuss, but you cannot be right in your chapter 1 because research background should be short, straightforward, and discuss. Maybe you need to discuss 5 things, but you can only discuss 1 thing in your research background. So you need to discuss more and more things before you discuss about the theory. So that's why I put 2.2 is overview. So somehow maybe you need to discuss about transformation, about evolution, about the chronology. That's why I'm highlight the research background extensions, because in chapter 1 maybe you write 2 or 3 pages for research background. So a lot of thing research background you need to discuss in this thesis. Never mind, you can continue for the 2.2. That's why I call that overview. In my case, I'm right overview of the Malaysian automotive industry. I just discuss about what is actually Malaysia automotive industry, what's the competitor, why Malaysia need development on the automotive industry. So I'm discussing 2.2 is not in research background, because research background is the issues, the relevant research issues. So many things I need to discuss about the research background, but somehow it's not suitable in chapter 1 because it's not direct issues. But this part, I need to write in literature review. At least my reader, supervisor, assessor can know that what is actually status in Malaysia automotive industry. So that's why I'm right 2.2. All right. Now we continue for the theoretical side. Some we call that basic knowledge. You can start with 2.3 about your theory. But again, I'm repeat again, it depends on your research. Some research don't have theory, they have model, they have principles, but you can change because 2.3 meaning that basic knowledge, or we call that theoreticals. So maybe you have 1 theory, maybe you have 2 theory, it depends in your fields. So you can end on 2.3 by propose on the theoretical frameworks. Again, I repeat, theoretical framework is actually from the previous one. We just copy and paste here because theoretical framework not from us, because let's say in this topic, you are refer in 1 article. So that article already proposed their research framework. Their research framework as we as the theoretical framework, because you refer their framework, automatically this framework become your theoretical frameworks. Okay. And also you use what we call the grand theory, for example, theory plan behavior, TPB. They have already visual framework. You can use the same thing because it's commonly, if you are study on TPB, this is a framework. So that's part we call that theoretical framework. Okay, next, theory is not enough, and you need to balance your knowledge. In order to show the knowledge, the reason why you want to study this topic is not enough about the main. Also, we need to support. In research, main and support, we need to work together. So you have discussed about the basic knowledge. So now support knowledge. So you can also, we can call that theory and concept. That's why when you read during your degree and master, when you go to the subject, so when you study subject, for example, project management, they have project management, theory and concept. So in this matter, also in your research, you need to balance up in terms of knowledge. That's why you need to write your main, which is your theory, and also your concept. So concept can be model, benchmarking, policy, practice, standard, others related on literature also can be practicals in here in 2.4. Okay. Next, we go to the 2.5 is about your dependence variable. So in case, if you are studying quantitative, we start with the dependent variable. So we continue for the independent variable. So you have another others variable such as mediating and moderating. For qualitative research, we call that basic theme. So focus theme and relevant theme. Okay. So maybe you are confused about the problem statement. So somehow when I read literature review, you are confusing between dependent variable and independent variable. So a lot of research, suddenly I ask you, where your IV and DV? You are confusing. Actually, in research, when we talk about problem, so you what is your problem? My problem is our performance. So that's why I'm studying this topic, because in our industry and government, we are actually less performant. So performance, that performance, we call that dependent variable. So dependent variable is belong to the your problem statement. Okay, every problem you need to solve. IV is your solutions. For example, my problem is performance. My problem is customer satisfaction. So performance is your DV. Customer satisfaction is your DV. In order to solve, in order to increase our customer satisfaction, I apply the strategy. So strategy, that's we call that independent variable. This is a basic thing. Some students should be no differentiate between IV and DV. So somehow they are confusing. Oh, problem is IV, and then the solution is DV. It's not. So we need, that's why I start 2.5 discuss dependent variable. Why dependent variable need discuss first? Because this is your problems. Okay. So why we need independent variable? Because we need have solutions. Okay. So that's why independent variable become the solutions and dependent variable become the problem statement we need to solve. Okay. In qualitative, we have the basic theme, focus theme, and relevant themes. Okay, so we start the general. That's why we call that a basic. Then we actually narrow or more relevant. That's why we focus a focus theme. The last one, the relevant theme. Okay, 2000. Sorry, and you can in 2.7 you can end this section by propose the conceptual framework. Okay, all right. The last one is actually that part we call that outline in order to answer your specific research objective. Okay, for quantitative, we call that hypothesis development. For quantitative research, we call that hypothesis development. Okay, let's say 2.8. 2.8.1, which is your hypothesis number 1, where your literature review. Okay, you can because this very short table, I just put the H1 or research question number 1. So from your research question number 1, please copy your research question number 1 and paste in 2.81. Please find literature review to support your research question number 1 or hypothesis number 1. Okay, and that's part I put here 2.81, but depend some another technical idea also can be you directly 2.8 specific for your research objective and research question number 1. 2.9 the section literature review for research question number 2 or number 3. Okay, you can do on that. So this just example. Okay, so this another template. This one you can. Okay, I show you the number 2. So this is the number 1. Okay, this is an I already discussed. So this is option number 2. So option number 2 also, this one you can do like this. Okay, you have 2.1 introduction, 2.2 overview, 2.3 theory, 2.4 concept, 2.5 dependent variable, 2.6 independent variables, 2.6 other variable, 2.8 hypothesis, 2.9 is research gap. You can also use this outline. I add 2.9 is research gap and 2.10 is your research framework. You combine together all of things. 2.10.1 is theoretical framework, 2.10.2 is your conceptual framework, 2.10.3 is research framework. See, sir, this is the option number 2. See, this is option number 2. So you can also in option number 3, this option number 3 is more suitable for the qualitative research. So we start with the introduction, overview, theory, concept, discussion, literature, or research question number 1. Specifically, you write your what is your research question number 1, you discuss here. 2.6 is your research question number 2. Also, I have the technical error here. 2.6 is not a discussion, literature review, research question number 1, should be its research question number 2. 2.7, research question number 3, 2.8 also research question number 4. I have error also in my subsection. It's not 2.51. For the 2.6 should be 2.61, 62, 63. 2.7 should be 2.71, 72, 73. 2.8 should be 2.81, 82, 83 also. So in qualitative, this is an objective. This is subjective. Some lecturer need also research framework, or we call that research genre mapping or research framework. So you can put 2.10 also, but some lecturer don't want, please remove 2.10. Okay, because in qualitative, not necessary you need to propose your research framework. But quantitative, yes, you need to have the research framework because we need to test according your research framework. Okay. Okay, have question here. Can you please share that the example to file with us, sir? To file, what to file? Meaning that this slide?
So yeah, you have shown as the second file for us to that we can use for chapter outline 2.
Okay, meaning that you need this slide?
The previous one,
Previous one, already this, I think there's, I'm share your two slide. The previous slide about the hypothesis or relationship, I already discussed in group WhatsApp. So if you want this slide, I will be passed you. We only have two slide here.
No, the one that that you have shown second, that we can use this one as well. The one we have already got from my guru, and the one you have shown now, it's looking a bit new, and I think
Okay.
it's a bit easy to adjust.
Your highlight about this slide. This slide,
Yeah,
okay? You
yeah,
want this slide. So just in the simple way, you need this slide. I will share with you in a WhatsApp group. No problem.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay. Any questions? Okay, if you don't have question, okay, if you have anything to ask, please you can also use in our WhatsApp platform group. So anything you have need to ask, please ask. Okay. So thank you for tonight. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you for your question. Thank you for still follow on our class business research method. We just only a couple of weeks to complete on the business research method. Please make sure please submit, that's the most important thing. Please submit your assignment. So I hope I can give the best result, meaning that pass result to everyone. So from previous semester we have problem from your senior. So because they are not submit the assignment, the result is fail actually. So they need to come back in this semester also to join our class to make it pass. And jadi to make a conclusion, just submit your assignment. But I will be make sure that I will be prepared the checklist. So in order to emails our assignment, please make sure this all checklist you make sure you tick you have done. Please submit, follow that my checklist. I will be prepared the checklist. Everyone to make sure that you need to tick the checklist. Okay, I have done this one. You need to checklist. Then please send all the assignment according from the checklist. Okay, because the most important thing, let's say example, you have 10 tasks, so you need to complete 10. Okay, complete meaning that submit. Submit through progress. Some people can write more because their progress can write more. Some student just little bit write because their progress just starting. Jadi you can submit whatever based on your progress. Okay. Some okay, you have question for the due date. Actually I still waiting for exam master and PhD exam date. So I will be share with you when I have received the specific date. So commonly is I'm based on the last date for I need to key in the carry mark. For example, let's say 1 August is the last date I need to add your mark through the system. Your the last date maybe 2 or 3 days before 1 August, because I need time also to check your progress and your assignment before I key in a mark in the system. So far I don't have received any dates for the last date key in through the system. Once I get the date, I will be shared that at least the last date for submission, and I will be informed later on. Never mind, no problem. We still have time. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum, selamat sejahtera and good night everyone. I will be share this video after this. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you everyone.
Thank you, sir.